In this video, we will discuss about cerebrospinal fluid. It's a fluid somewhat like blood plasma and interstitial fluid. It is present within the ventricular system as well as in the subarachnoid space. In an adult, total volume of CSF is about 150 ml, out of which the 30 ml CSF lies inside the ventricular system and remaining CSF lies inside the subarachnoid space. The composition of cerebrospinal fluid. CSF is clear, colorless and slightly alkaline fluid with specific gravity of 1005 to 1008. It is made up of inorganic salts, traces of proteins and glucose. When we compare with blood plasma, the protein component in the CSF is much lower compared to the blood plasma. In CSF it is about 25 mg per 100 ml, whereas in plasma it is about 600 mg per 100 ml. Glucose content of CSF is almost about half of that of the plasma. In the CSF, glucose is about 50 mg per 100 ml, whereas in the plasma, glucose is about 100 mg per 100 ml. The chloride in CSF is slightly higher compared to the plasma. In the CSF, concentration of chloride is about 120 milliequivalent per liter, whereas in the plasma, the chloride component is about 100 milliequivalent per liter. Let us now discuss the production of CSF. About 80 to 90% of the CSF is produced by choroid plexus of lateral ventricles, with remaining 10 to 20% CSF is produced by choroid plexus in the third as well as fourth ventricle. The average amount of the CSF formed per day is about 500 ml. The circulation and absorption of cerebrospinal fluid. As you all know, CSF is mainly produced in the lateral ventricle. From here, via interventricular foramen of Monro, it goes into the third ventricle. From third ventricle, via cerebral aqueduct, it goes into the fourth ventricle. In the fourth ventricle, from the fourth ventricle, fluid escapes via openings present in the roof of the fourth ventricle. There is one central opening in the lower part which is known as foramen of Magendie and two lateral openings known as foramen of Luska. Via these openings, cerebrospinal fluid comes out from the ventricular system into the subarachnoid space. After coming out, the CSF flows into the subarachnoid space over brain as well as subarachnoid space of the spinal cord. The most of the CSF flows upwards via gap into the tentorium cerebelli. Then it goes forwards and laterally over the inferior surface of cerebrum. Afterwards, it ascends on the supralateral aspect of each cerebral hemisphere and reach the arachnoid villi as well as arachnoid granulations. In the arachnoid viri and arachnoid granulation, there will be absorption of CSF into the superior sagittal sinus. Some of the CSF moves inferiorly into the subarachnoid space around spinal cord and cauda equina. Smaller amount of absorption also takes place in the veins of pia mater. The flow of CSF is mainly facilitated by pulsations of cerebral and spinal arteries, as well as movements of head and spine. The important functions of cerebrospinal fluid are: first one, it serves as a cushion between the CNS and surrounding bones. Second thing, it also acts as a shock absorber. It prevents the jarring or shocking forces transmitted towards the CNS. It supports brain and spinal cord and maintain uniform pressure over them. It also nourishes the CNS. It removes the metabolites and waste products from the CNS. It also compensates change in the intracranial volume. For example, if blood volume of the brain increases, then more CSF is drained away. On the contrary, if blood volume of the brain reduces, the more CSF is retained inside. And lastly, it serves as a pathway for the pineal secretions to reach the pituitary gland. Pineal secretion to the pituitary gland. The special properties of CSF are: due to presence of blood CSF barrier, antibodies can't reach the CSF. That's why infection of CNS are often fatal. Second thing, due to this barrier, bile also not found in the CNS. Bile is not found in the CSF, even in the severe jaundice. And third thing, most of the drugs cannot reach the CSF due to blood CSF barrier. But there is no barrier between CSF and brain. So due to absence of CSF brain barrier, if drugs are injected into the subarachnoid space, they soon enter the extracellular spaces around the neurons and neuroglia. Let us now discuss the applied aspect of cerebrospinal fluid. We need to withdraw the cerebrospinal fluid for various diagnostic and therapeutic purposes. The most common site from the CSF is withdrawn is the lumbar region, and the procedure is known as lumbar puncture. Apart from the lumbar puncture, CSF can also be withdrawn by cisternal puncture, as well as directly from the ventricle, that is by the ventricular puncture. Normally the CSF is clear and colorless, but in case of bacterial meningitis it becomes cloudy. Normally CSF is cell free, but in bacterial meningitis there is increased number of the cells in the CSF, as well as protein content of the CSF also gets raised. The next thing is Froehlich syndrome. In Froehlich syndrome, there occurs blockage anywhere in the vertebral canal. In that case, the fluid cannot pass the obstruction. So, the CSF below the level of obstruction will be having following features. First one, it coagulates spontaneously due to increased protein content. Second thing, it becomes yellow in color due to increased pigments. And third thing, any rise in the intracranial pressure cannot be transmitted below the level of obstruction. Lastly, we will discuss about the hydrocephalus. The hydrocephalus means abnormal increase in the volume of cerebrospinal fluid. It is characterized by excessive accumulation of CSF either within the ventricular system or in the subarachnoid space. The most common cause of hydrocephalus is blockage at any site in the pathway of the circulation of CSF. Apart from this, there could be excessive production of CSF or there could be decreased absorption of CSF. The blockage within the ventricular system can occur at any site. It can occur either at the level of interventricular foramen or at the level of cerebral aqueduct or at the level of foramen in the roof of fourth ventricle. That means foramen of Magendie and foramen of Lusca. If interventricular foramen is blocked, one or both the lateral ventricle can enlarge depending upon the site of the blockage. If blockage occurs at the level of cerebral aqueduct, both lateral and third ventricle can get enlarged. And if blockage occurs at the roof of at the site of foramina present in the roof of fourth ventricle, that means foramen of Magendie and foramen of Lusca, then both the lateral ventricle, third ventricle as well as fourth ventricle will get enlarged. Blockage in the pathway of CSF outside the ventricular system can occur at this site, that means at the site of the tentorial notch. If blockage occurs at the site of tentorial notch, the CSF can't flow upward and reach up to the arachnoid villi and granulation for the absorption. There are two types of hydrocephalus, internal and external hydrocephalus. If accumulation of the CSF occurs within the ventricular system, that type of the hydrocephalus is known as internal or non-communicating hydrocephalus. And if the excessive accumulation occurs in the subarachnoid space, that type of hydrocephalus is known as external or communicating hydrocephalus. Internal hydrocephalus most commonly occurs due to the blockage anywhere in the ventricular system, whereas external hydrocephalus occurs due to the blockage into the subarachnoid space. The most common cause of hydrocephalus is stenosis of this cerebral aqueduct. The clinical features of hydrocephalus includes increase in skull circumference. Second thing is bossing of forehead, means abnormal protuberance most commonly occurs in the frontal bones of forehead. The third feature is widely separated sutures. The fourth one is enlarged and tense anterior fontanelle. Fifth one, thin scalp with dilated scalp vein. The sixth one, the eyes look downwards, which gives typically the setting sun's appearance. The seventh one, when you tap or percuss the skull at the site of the junction of frontal, parietal and temporal bone, it will give the cracked port sound, which indicates the widely separated sutures. There can be cranial nerve paralysis, progressive loss of motor function and dementia.